Welcome aboard MSC World Europa, where boredom simply does not exist. Whilst my friend Hannah and I were on board, we were stunned at the endless array of activities and experiences World Europa has to offer. We really made an effort to try and do absolutely everything that World Europa had to offer, so that is what I'm going to talk about in this video. The first thing on our very long to-do list was the virtual reality shooting game. It takes place in a room that was smaller than I expected. I think because the ship is so big, I just expected every venue to be huge. Opposite the massive TV screen, there were 6 elevated seats. So Hannah and I took our pick because we were the only ones doing it at the time, which was nice. So the VR games on offer were Neon Ninja, Werewolves and Zombies, which apparently was the scariest. So we went for the medium scary game, which was Werewolves. And I'm glad we did because it was actually really jumpy. The game was to shoot as many werewolves as you could that had taken over the city. Hannah did really well, getting 14,200 points. I did absolutely shocking, getting 1,300 points. So, you know what this means. If werewolves do take over the city, recruit Hannah, the werewolf slayer, not me. I would be useful, however, to use as a distraction while you run away from the werewolves because I jumped a lot. In fact, as we left the game room, passengers who were waiting to play the game were laughing because they had heard us screaming while they were waiting, which is embarrassing. Last year, I started watching Drive to Survive, which really got me into Formula 1. So I was eager to try the Formula 1 racer that they have on board. I channeled my inner Max Verstappen and Danny Ricciardo. Anyway, I imagine that it is just as tricky to get into an actual Formula 1 car as it is to get into this one on World Europa. It was tight and I had worn a dress, no overalls here. It was very low down, but it does give you the feel of actually being in a Formula 1 car because as you're playing the game, the car tilts and shudders, which is really cool. Once again, Hannah won. Unfortunately, I skidded off the racetrack quite a bit. At this point, I was starting to wonder whether I wanted to continue trying these things with Hannah because she kept winning. And I'm not overly competitive, but it's not great to always be a loser, is it? It was cool to try. However, it was tricky getting out of the car because, as I just said, it's very low down. So my advice to you is if you're planning on trying the Formula 1 racer when you're on board, start training arms in the gym because you're going to need your arm strength to be able to push yourself out of the car. So speaking of driving, I honestly didn't expect to be doing so much driving on this trip. They have bumper cars, which I was very excited about. I got to feel like a kid again. When I was a kid, I could not wait to learn to drive. So any driving game that was available, I was there. And this was no exception. So our first go, there was about 5 cars taking part, and it was good. Family-friendly fun. We were all having a little drive, a little bump. Everyone was laughing. It was great. They got a good playlist going, which always helps. And then we loved it so much that we got out the bumper cars and then joined the queue again. And then went on again, but this time it was only me and Hannah. So we were a little bit more aggressive towards each other. You know, before it was like, aha, bump, aha, bump. Whereas when me and Hannah were doing it alone, it probably looked like we were trying to cause each other serious bodily harm. So bumper cars was in the Sportsplex, and another activity that happened in the Sportsplex was roller skating. So they host roller discos throughout the cruise, and what's great is they're not too crowded. I had visions of people fighting over roller skates, but it was pretty calm. There was enough room for everyone to roll around or stumble. I did not partake in the roller skating because I would have been the one stumbling, but I can appreciate that for people who have good gross motor skills, it's a lot of fun. So moving on to something that I was absolutely dying to try, the Venom Drop. Now, I've seen many slides during my time at sea, but this really has that summon. I really appreciated how scary the snake head was, which is the entrance to the slide. So I've been down dry slides before, but a lot of those, you know, you're going down at a leisurely pace. I've had time to take a picture, send a text, but this slide, I didn't even get a chance to look at the view through the transparent lid. It was actually so fast. I was down at the bottom before I'd even realised what had happened. I wasn't ready for the speed, so me and Hannah did go on this slide multiple times. It was so much fun. I will say though, if you want to try this slide, make sure you do it on a port day when a lot of people are off in port. Obviously you can do it on a sea day, but you can expect to be queuing for about half an hour. Whereas you do it on a port day, you can pretty much go straight on. And what was great is our cabin was situated at the back of the ship overlooking the World Promenade. So it had a great view of the end of the slide. So we'd be sat on our balcony and we would just hear people screaming as they were coming down the slide, because I don't think anyone expects it to be as fast as it actually is. So with every holiday, you want excitement, but you also want to mix it up with some downtime, bit of relaxation. So Hannah and I did just that, and we visited the spa. We both had a massage, which was absolutely delightful, and then we got taken to the thermal suite, which was so beautiful. Low lights, twinkly spotlights in the ceiling, hot beds, calming music. They had a thermal swimming pool, which was like getting into a bath. So I just swam up and down this for like 20 minutes and then sat under the rainfall and just let it hammer on my back, which was just great. And I really loved the sauna. I love a sauna anyway, but what was really nice about this sauna is it has a big window. So I could sit in the window in the sauna and watch the world go by. And I was like, oh, this is so nice. But by far the most unique part about this thermal area was that they had a snow room. Now, I've seen an ice room, I've seen a cold room, I've never seen a snow room. This was really cool. Me and Hannah stood in there, not for long. We're not fans of the cold, if I'm honest. But nevertheless, the snow room was very cool. You could actually have a snowball fight in there. I refrained. But all in all, this was such a beautiful spa. And so as I said, you want the relaxation, but you also want the fun, which brings me on to the Aurora Borealis Aqua Park. So the Aqua Park is on deck 20 and it's dedicated to little ones mainly, like the kids. And this is so cool. So they have 3 water slides in this area. So you've got one water slide with VR technology. You have a dual racer slide. So says it in the name, you can race someone down the slide. Then you also have a drop slide, which honestly sounds like my worst nightmare, but kids were going absolutely nuts for it. So I guess that's an unpopular opinion of mine. I actually got speaking to a woman while we were on board who had come on board with her family and her kids, and she was like, I haven't seen them. The kids have been so busy with the kids clubs and the water slides. She was like, I've only seen them in the evening for dinner and the show, but in the day, there's just too much going on. And that actually brings me on to the shows. MSC have really put a lot of focus into the visuals rather than on the storyline / dialogue. I think because there's such an array of nationalities on board. Now, I didn't know what to make of this at first, if I'm honest, because it's not what I'm used to. But I became very fond of it. And you know why? Because it required no brain power. You don't have to follow a storyline or concentrate too hard. You just need to watch, which after a long day of sunbathing, that's what I want. The sun takes it out of you. I don't want to have to interpret what's going on stage. So it was nice that I could just sit back with my cocktail, watch 2 men spin around a giant metal ball on motorbikes on a cruise ship and not have to worry about what it meant. There was amazing dancers, the costumes were insane. And one of my favourite shows that we went to was the Queen of the Night show with Cleopatra. That is her real name. And she was just incredible. She was a diva. She sung loads of diva anthems from Whitney to Aretha, even Anastasia. So it was great because there were songs that everyone in the English speaking world would and should know. So everyone was really getting involved and having a sing-along. I really wish I could insert her performing a song in this video, but unfortunately I'll get a copyright strike if I do that. If you get the opportunity to go to the Queen of the Night show to see Cleopatra, make sure you do it. Now, most of our evenings on World Europa involved dinner, a show, and then we would go to the Raj Polo Tea House. But another venue Hannah and I frequented was Fizz, the champagne bar. I do actually have to say, going to a champagne bar usually wouldn't be my first choice. I'm more of a gin girly, but This is just such a lovely environment to drink in. Sitting in the window as the sun was setting, drinking our Veuve Clicquot. And also I loved the uniforms in here. So they have these waistcoats that have loads of bubbles on, so they look like glasses of champagne, which I thought was really cool. And again, just added to the immersive experience that they've done a really good job of. And if you've researched MSC World Europa at all, I'm sure you will have heard of the secret bar on board. Now this was something that Hannah and I were determined to visit. However, it's also the venue that you have no control over whether you get the opportunity to visit or not, because you have to be invited. And we didn't know who had to invite you, whether there was an invitation. Was it just being in the right place at the right time? But anyway, our relentless pursuit of the bar paid off because we finally got in. Now I've spoke about this bar more in the previous video than I will in here, but I'll just say this was up there with my favourite thing we got to do on board. We were planning on staying for about an hour, maybe 2, but we ended up staying there all night because it was just such a good time. And although I can't give anything away, I can promise that if you manage to locate the secret bar, it's not going to disappoint. Now, I've always found it a bit ironic that when you are taking the absolute worst care of your body, you're probably eating loads, you're drinking soda, you're drinking alcohol to get your money's worth out of that drinks package you purchased, is also the time when you are strutting around in your swimwear trying to get a tan. But it is something that we all do on holiday. So us lying by the pool trying to get a tan was inevitable. The question was which pool? Because they've got the main pool, the Botanic Garden pool, the Zen pool, and that's just to name a few. So while I wasn't surprised how many pools there were, because it's such a huge ship, I was surprised by the size of them. The main pool was massive. Now, granted, it does look bigger than it actually is because the sides are shallow, so you can lie in the water to help you tan along, but there's still a huge swimming area. And there's also loads of activities going on here throughout the day, like dance classes, aqua aerobics, quizzes, and not to mention all the eateries that are nearby. So this really was a hub and the perfect place to spend your day if you wanted to tan, swim, and be entertained and be fed while you were doing it. And something I really liked about this area was the staggered sunbathing areas, which were separated by glass. So Hannah and I would lay on one of these steps, and it actually felt quite private, which isn't something I expected to get on a ship that has so many passengers on board, sunbathing around the main pool. Now, just in front of the main pool is the Botanic Pool. So this is perfect for people who want to swim, but maybe they don't want to be in direct sunlight. It felt so serene because of all the greenery around. And then I loved this massive jacuzzi that was alongside the window. So you just have panoramic views while you're bubbling away. And then the last one I want to mention is the adults only at the very back of the ship, which is known as the Zen Pool. And these pools were smaller, but there were 2 of them, which kind of made up for the small size. But this whole area was great for relaxing because you've got the pool, you've got the sun deck, but you've also got the Zen bar that overlooks the promenade, and you've also got a fantastic view of the wake. So this really was a great area for people to chill who didn't have kids like me and Hannah. Cruises in general are known for offering great food, and when it came to MSC, which is an Italian cruise line, I had high expectations for the food and it did not disappoint. So during our cruise, we tried 3 of the specialty restaurants on board: the Chef's Garden Kitchen, La Pescaderia, and Cato. I was most excited for the Garden Kitchen, but the one that blew me away was Cato. So the Garden Kitchen offers the first hydrophobic garden at sea, and I learned that a hydrophobic garden is a method of growing plants without soil. And the ingredients that are grown in this garden are used in the food that is served in the Garden Kitchen. And we had such a beautiful meal here. Scallops, mushroom tartare, the desserts were incredible, meringue with sea buckthorn, and it was an educational dining experience as well, which was cool. Our waiter Dharma was absolutely fantastic. He knew everything. Every question we threw at him, he knew the answer to. And this was definitely my favourite restaurant in terms of decor. Like, it was such a nice space. We had such a great view out of the window, and we were actually one of the last 2 to leave because we were just enjoying it so much. Now the second restaurant we tried was La Pescaderia, which featured a fish market display. So the array of whole fresh fish, including lobsters, Mediterranean sea bass, Scottish salmon, cuttlefish and swordfish, was awesome to see on board a cruise ship. And this paired with being sat on the world promenade, it really felt like we could have been having dinner in a restaurant on land. So we chose our fish by weight and then they prepared it right in front of us. And the fish that you choose is accompanied by lots of delicious meze dishes. And I loved that we chose by actually seeing the dishes made up, and then the ones that we selected they would make up fresh for us. But the highlight in terms of restaurants had to be Kato, the sushi and teppanyaki restaurant. So we had to choose our spot at one of the 4 cooking stations. So the chefs cook on an open grill, creating like a sensory feast. So my chef at Kato was not only skilled but also entertaining, cracking jokes and even surprising us with a wind-up chick from his chef's hat. I felt like we got dinner and a show. Now the food was absolutely amazing, and this was my first time having teppanyaki and it definitely won't be my last. And this is one of my favourite things about going on holiday, is trying things that you haven't before. These prawns were so succulent, the soup was delightful, the staff was so friendly and funny, and also I don't usually like sitting with strangers, but because there was so much going on it wasn't awkward. We just had an absolutely great time, and I would definitely recommend going to Kato when you're on board. And speaking of tasty treats, the other culinary delight that we found was the Jean-Philippe Murray chocolate shop. Every time I walked past this, I found myself going in. Jean-Philippe is featured on a few of the MSC ships, but this is my first time seeing a chocolate factory on a cruise ship. I just don't know what they're going to come up with next. They've got Formula One, chocolate factory, space station perhaps. So I did take full advantage of this and I made my own chocolate bar. So you select what you want on this iPad. You pay about $7, which I personally didn't think was that bad. And then 2 hours later, I went to pick it up. I went for a milk chocolate bar with Oreo bits, white chocolate balls and like Smarties on. This is it in all its glory. So I went and sat at the back of the ship watching this group salsa class on the promenade with Hannah. Opened my chocolate bar, thinking me and Hannah would just have a little taste, and by the time the class was finished, so was the chocolate bar. And then we went for dinner. Me and Hannah did do a little bit of shopping on board, but we also did a little bit of shopping in the ports because, you know, gotta get those magnets for the board. Because let's face it, the bonus of going on a cruise is the fact that you can visit multiple countries on one holiday. So as well as trying to make the most of being on board one of the biggest cruise ships in the world, we also wanted to make the most of the ports that we were visiting along the way. So Hannah and I took an excursion to Capri. Now, we didn't actually dock in Naples until the late morning, which was nice because it meant that we could have a lie-in, go downstairs to the Lavazza coffee shop, have a nice coffee while people watching, just have a leisurely morning. Then we disembarked for our excursion and got the 45-minute ferry over to the island of Capri. And just getting off the ferry, I was so excited because it is just beautiful. Firstly, we took the coach up to the very top of the island, which is known as Anna Capri. It was here that we had the opportunity to take the chairlift up to the top of Mount Salado. I'm not the biggest fan of heights, so I did find the chairlift a bit scary. However, the views of Mount Vesuvius in the distance did make it worth it. Once Hannah and I reached the top, we treated ourselves to an ice cream as we bimbled around the top of the mountain and took in the views. We had a great view of the Isle of Ischia and the Gulf of Salerno, which was just beautiful. Once we had taken all of our pictures, we made our way to Capri Centre, which was about a 20-minute drive. As you can imagine, the town centre was bustling with tourists, but it didn't take away from the beauty of this little town. There were smells of pastry in the air, people drinking apparel spritz everywhere, and wonderful views at every single turn. After having what felt like a full day exploring Capri, it was time to head back to the ferry port, which would take us back to Naples, where we would find MSC World Europa. Because we arrived in the afternoon, if I had not booked an excursion with MSC, I probably wouldn't have gone over to Capri due to fearing not getting back to the cruise ship on time. And this is one of my favourite things about doing an excursion that's organised by the cruise line, as you can truly relax and enjoy your time rather than worrying about it. It was a really well organised tour, which was led by one of the funniest guides I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. So much so that it actually felt like we were just visiting a friend who was showing us around her hometown rather than on an organised excursion. So after having the absolute best time exploring the Isle of Capri, we got back on board, grabbed a beer, sat on our balcony and watched the beautiful sail away from the back of the ship, which was just so perfect. So this cruise ship really was spectacular. There was such a huge array of things to do, my favourite being the bumper cars and the secret bar. Even though we were busy every day trying some new activity, it was a really relaxing trip and definitely changed my mind about big cruise ships. I've always questioned whether I would enjoy a large cruise ship because I just thought it would be way too much. But after cruising on MSC World Europa, I would definitely do it again. I love the variety of dining options, from the casual bites at the buffet to the gourmet experiences at the specialty restaurants. The nightlife on board was incredible with live music and theatre shows. There's an option of going to the nightclub or listening to beautiful piano while having a cup of tea before bed. And even on the days where we decided to take it easy, the ship offered plenty of quiet spots to relax and unwind. So there is no way that you can run out of things to do on a week's cruise on board MSC World Europa. Every day brought something new and exciting, ensuring that boredom was never an option. But I hope this video has given you a glimpse into the incredible cruise ship MSC World Europa. And if you have any questions or want any details, please let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. If you are considering a cruise on MSC World Europa, I wholeheartedly recommend it. It is a vacation that you will remember forever. But don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you enjoyed this video. But as always guys, I will see you in the next video. Bye!